Welcome. Today's lecture is on the global capital and multinational corporations. We basically it has connections with the previous part. It has connections with the next part. But in the previous part, we were mainly concentrated on the movement of machines. Now we are basically focusing on the capital movements itself and the way capital itself organizes, the companies organize basically. And the most popular or outstanding aspect of the global capital is the FDI, foreign direct investments. And as I told you before, portfolio investments, which is actually movement of the financial capital, is not viewed by many, well, a significant number of economists as a positive movement. FDI is much more preferred by major economists. And actually, we should note that FDI can also be flow from developing countries to developing countries or developed countries to developed countries, although mainly the direction people assume is from developed to developing countries. And FDI also creates all these companies which don't have a central location, but actually, well, for example, especially in the service sector, when Starbucks opens coffee shops in a country, that's also FDI. Or Hilton Hotel opens a hotel in the country, that's also FDI. Of course, FDI can also be an agricultural company, for example, buying fields and doing agriculture in your country, or basically opening a factory and doing production in your country. So these are trends up to 2016. These are developing economies. It shows the flow. Most of the FDI, I mean the developed economies, is here. Most of the FDI, actually, I mean this stops at 2014, so the rest of it is projection. But you can see a significant portion of the FDI is actually flowing to the developed economies, and much smaller, smaller or kind of equal amount. In this case, actually, I think a little bit bigger amount is flowing to the developing economies. Although the relative share of developing economies has grown since 2004 and 2005, basically. For the developed world, it is going up and down. It's in some cases very high amounts and then goes down. In case of the developing economies, actually, the trends are more stable compared with the developed world, which might mean actually the conditions that affect the fluctuations of FDI to developed world might not be that much effective in increasing or decreasing the FDI flow to the developing countries. Although, as you see here, especially in 2004 and 2007, basically we see this increase basically partially has also caused by the increase in the FDI. So we have way most significant increase between 2007 and 2008 basically, and before that time and after that time relatively more stable values. Countries with most FDI flows: United States, China, Hong Kong, Netherlands, Ireland. Inflows, I mean, in these countries, to these countries, FDI is coming in. FDI is coming into the United States also. Well, especially service countries throughout the world want to invest in the United States, but also to some extent also production companies also want to invest in the United States if they can, and become also partners to the organizations in the United States. So China it was in 2018 behind a lot of it was significantly behind the United States in terms of FDI inflows. Well, this is an interesting video, and you can look to push this to look detail of it. When we are talking on the outflows of the FDI, first countries that came in our mind are usually, the developed countries like EU, European Union, of course, and within European Union, France, England, Germany, Italy, maybe Spain, maybe Netherlands, Canada, Australia, maybe, and United States, of course. But China recently is making increasing foreign direct investments. Of course, the most of those investments are basically made to the Asia. A significant portion is also made to Latin America, 13%. Others are rather small. The EU has 5.9% and Oceania has 4.4% investments, but Africa is 2.6% and North America is 2.7. This is up to 2009. So after 2009, there might be some change in this graph, even further change in this graph. We will look to that in coming parts when we study global cooperation. And as billions, you can see that it has the foreign direct investments have risen from $2.7 billion to $56.53 billion in 7 years. And I will encourage you to look further to that. What happened after 2009. Well, is FDI a good thing? And can developing countries draw FDI? Well, according to famous convergence hypothesis, because the FDI might be a way which might close the gap of the richer countries and poorer countries, and this is especially so because in poorer countries, because there is less capital, investments when you get additional capital and invest it will have higher return, because as we invest more and more and more capital, diminishing returns means that it should basically have lower and lower and lower returns. So since investments to the poorer countries become more productive, basically companies will rather tend to invest to the poorer countries than richer countries, which will lead to poorer countries grow faster than the richer countries. Of course, when you make this make exact calculation using the model, because the richer country will also have some investments based on the saving rate inside of the richer country. And poorer country, as it gets closer to the richer country, its growth rate starts to slow down. This basically means poorer country never exactly catch up richer country, but the distance between them will become smaller and smaller. There's a counter argument to this view actually, which basically states that poorer country may not be able to draw the FDI. Why? Because poorer country might be it might not. It has it's very likely for it to have all sectors underdeveloped, And having all sectors underdeveloped means that if you want to build a factory there, you don't have sufficient infrastructure there. The input costs are high. As a result, investments in those countries might be actually costly than the richer countries. So unless state develops all the sectors simultaneously, in that case, poorer country might remain poor and FDI might not flow to the poorer country. Of course, FDI flowed to some of the developing countries, but the question remains whether that flow is kind of as a result of state support and infrastructure basically provided by the state, or is it because of the dynamic you have seen here? Also, there is one idea which says, in some cases, FDI flow might rather create a negative results for a country, for countries in general. And that's not because the investments themselves are necessarily bad. Portfolio investments themselves could be bad because they move a lot and they create instability. FDI is long-term investment, and by itself it might not be that bad. However, it might, when foreign companies choose places to make their investments, especially the production companies, they might bid one country against the other to make it provide most favorable conditions. And the most favorable conditions might be low taxes, high pollution, worse treatment of its workers. So the workers' rights or environmental protection or the tax revenue the company gets from them, those companies, might get smaller and smaller and smaller. And as a result, the country itself might not even be able to build the infrastructure that is necessary to keep economy running. Although another idea is maybe having a better infrastructure provided by the company might be enough for them to come to your country. So basically, you should not necessarily make the conditions worse and worse. Rather, maybe getting more qualitative labor force, getting better infrastructure, but in return providing some safety conditions for the workers and taxation, tax revenue you got from the company might be acceptable if there are returns. Well, if company is getting something in return. So whether this race to bottom, the continuous worsening conditions, is there, or maybe it might be there, especially when there is a crisis and the countries become desperate to get more and more FDI. That's a discussion, and there is no answer everyone is agreed on. And if you want, you might also think about this discussion. Well, one semi-solution to this, and I have put a lot of videos on it. You can see different viewpoints on this solution. It is called export processing zones, EPZs. Basically, you create special zones, and those zones are just producing products that are exported from the country. And within those zones, certain labor regulations or taxation or environmental regulations, even in some cases, might not be valid. I will talk more on this in the next parts.